See, this is what turned me off by the mainstream media is when they do this. To the point where Tiffany Cross might as well just been a podcaster, a YouTuber, because I missed when news was actually news and not people that want to be journalists acting like they are commentators. Because it's like, girl, you on a whole white network talking about race. Come on now. Come on. Hi, welcome to JOATV. If you're new to my channel, please click subscribe and click the bell so you'll be the first to know when I upload. Please subscribe to my second channel, JOATV. Give me a thumbs up, leave me a comment, let me know what you think. The card for the subscriptions for my second channel is going to be up here. Watch this bullshit and I'll come back with some more. It's utter bullshit.
Okay, Carlos Watson, Sage Steele, Van Jones. What do these three folks have in common? Well, they're all people who have been prompted up by wealthy or powerful white Americans, and yet we, the keepers of the culture, don't really rock with any of them like that. Now, obviously, the three of these folks are most definitely black faces. However, they are not necessarily black voices, and there's a difference. Let me explain. Take a listen to these half-witted, self-hating remarks from Sage Steele.
Barack Obama chose black and he's biracial. I'm like, well, congratulations to the president. That's his thing. I think that's fascinating considering his black dad was nowhere to be found, but his white mom and grandma raised him. But hey, you do you.
What? So that is undoubtedly a black face, whether or not she knows it, but it is most definitely not a black voice. Yet I'm sure someone is giving themselves a big diversity pat on the back by having that modern day minstrel show, Sage Steppin' Fetchit, on the airwaves spewing her continued nonsense. Now let's listen to Jeff Bezos's black friend, Van Jones, after a Donald Trump speech.
He became president of the United States in that moment.
Okay. Now, let's be clear, Van and Carlos are far from being sage, but there's certainly something to be said about wealthy and powerful white people elevating certain voices over others. By now, I'm sure you've all heard about Carlos Watson and the implosion of Aussie media. In Aussie's 8 years in the marketplace, the media company never really achieved prominence in the field of journalism, nor did it ever make an impact producing multimedia content. But that sure didn't stop investors from filling Watson's coffers with more than $70 million in funding. Why? Because he had that gift of making white people comfortable. Now, for those of us who don't prioritize their feelings over our actual equality, funding for our platforms is far less available. In 2017, venture capital investment reached just over $84 billion. Now, that's a height not seen since the dot-com bubble of the early 2000s. But practically none of that money went to startups run by people of color. A majority of funds went to college-educated white male founders. And of course, it's the wealthy white folks who are writing the checks. Studies have found that white people make up more than 70% of venture capitalists, while 25.2% are Asian, only 1.7% are black, and just 1.3% are Latino. Now, in 2016, discrimination and bias in favor of companies run by white men caused the U.S. to lose out on over 1.1 million minority-owned businesses and forfeit more than 9 million potential job opportunities. So, a word of advice to the landscape of the rich and powerful. Perhaps instead of investing in people of color who make you comfortable, you may want to give a second look to those of us who make you uncomfortable. After all, we've been uncomfortable for a mighty long time, and we are actually the ones who likely rock with the communities you're trying to reach. This is why there's such credo in spaces we create ourselves. Credibility is crucial, and doing all things for the culture is key. So while some of you keep raining $100 million on people not invited to the cookout, you're starting to look more like the villains in Get Out. During the unrest the past few years, I heard from many CEOs and others in leadership positions say with confidence that they've had really honest conversations with their black employees. And let me just tell you, no, you didn't. You had a meeting, and perhaps there was likely some candor in the remarks, but do understand there was a meeting after the meeting, and that's where the honest dialogue took place. And for many, being a part of this cultural shift is all well and good until we start to talk about a power shift, where we're not asking to be hired, but we're the ones doing the hiring. And if that makes you uncomfortable, but this does not,
Barack Obama chose black and he's biracial. I'm like, well, congratulations to the president. I think that's fascinating considering his black dad was nowhere to be found, but his white mom and grandma raised him.
you should ask yourself why.
So after watching the toxic commentary that Tiffany Cross made, I was like, am I the only one that really feel this way? Because I highly doubt it. And so this Twitter person and this African-American person even wrote, this is wrong and very misleading and does nothing to move black issues and voices forward. What Sage did was wrong and out of pocket. Van working with Trump to move issues forward that he believes will have a major impact for black people is not wrong. Please stop this. My whole thing with the Sage Steele issue, the anchor on ESPN, I really didn't find anything wrong with what she said when it came to Barack Obama. She is biracial. She was told by someone that she knew that, hey, well, Barack Obama puts black on his documentation and he's biracial. She goes, well, that's good for Barack Obama. Just because I'm biracial, that doesn't mean I should put black. Maybe I identify with both. Maybe I just identify with white. And there's people, you may not believe it, but I've met some people. There's people who are biracial, who are mixed with black and white, that probably just identify with their white culture, their white side, or probably just identify with their black side, or just probably identify with both. I mean, it's different from all people. And we want to use the word monolith when it benefits the narrative of the whole mainstream media. Well, let's use that word in this notion as well. You know, biracial people are not monolithic. They could identify as only white. They could identify as only black. They could identify as both. I mean, it's not one size fits all for everyone. And I think that's the point what Sage Steele was trying to say. And yeah, the sarcastic comment, I mean, you know, people are cynical and sensitive nowadays. It's probably a comment that I would probably make as well. But, you know, get a grip. You know, she's human. She was on a podcast. And I'm glad that ESPN actually did not fire her, that she's actually coming on air next week. Now, this is what gets me about Van Jones. Tiffany Cross talked about Van Jones. She also talked about the other guy, Carlos, and I only know him from his YouTube videos. I really don't know him that well. But the thing with Van Jones is that, you know, one thing I just highly dislike about Van Jones is, you know, Anna Navarro spilled the tea. She basically exposed the man when she told Van Jones, hey, you're taking pictures with Jared Kushner, but yet he went to CNN trying to get you fired, talking to executives.
Van, look, you know, I lost a lot of Republican followers and people who trusted me in the Republican Party because of the positions I took against Trump. And Sonny is right. You've lost a lot of people who trusted you and who saw you as a voice because of the positions you took during Trump. And in 2016, you and I were probably the two most vocal critics of Trump during the campaign on CNN, to the point where it was reported that Jared Kushner went in and met with executives at our parent company and asked that you and I be fired. And then, you know, all of a sudden you show up working with Nepotism Barbie and Nepotism Ken, and you work and showing up, you know, in pictures with Eric Trump and with Candace Owens. And so I think there's people who wonder, and I'm one of them, how did that evolution happen? How did you go from being this very principled critic of the Trump administration, as I was, to all of a sudden being in the White House, celebrating them with them and being, you know, and posing for pictures with Candace Owens? I mean, can you explain the evolution to people who are puzzled by it?
And that's one thing I will not, you know, do is I'm not about to take a picture with somebody that's trying to take my bag. I'm not about to take a picture with somebody that's trying to get me fired. That's crazy. That's crazy. But, you know, if Ice Cube or if Van Jones wants to work with the other side and try to have some form of civility, I'm okay with that. Just the other day, I actually, you know, almost supposedly was going to be hired by the other side as a writer. But looking at their content and looking, I'm not going to say the name of the website, but looking at their content and looking at what they do, which I knew firsthand, I was like, you know what? I don't really feel comfortable working for the right when they're, you know, bitching about Rashida Tlaib, or, people that represent me as a person. You see what I mean? Or represent what she's truly fighting for equal rights in Palestine, which is a whole different narrative than what's going on here in the United States of America. But still, so it's one thing to actually go on a platform and talk to people and work with the other side, but it's different when someone is trying to get you fired, like a Jared Kushner allegedly trying to get Van Jones fired. I can't be cool with that ever. So I really try to understand why the Black culture is this way, and it's sort of relatable to the Arab culture as well. I mean, Black people make up 90% Democrat. That's just facts. And I researched the other day, and Arabs also make up the majority of the Democratic Party. I found 11% make up a Republican Party. I mean, I look. It is what it is, and so I find out with both cultures, it's collective. It's like, it's either for our narrative or against our narrative, so I can understand that. I actually been through a situation that way when I was in college. I had a guy from Saudi Arabia that was behind me, was sitting behind me in an auditorium class, and he told his friend that was Saudi Arabian as well. He said in Arabic that Hada Mish Zaina, which basically means he's not like us. So that personally made me sort of just kind of be try to stray away from a lot of Arabs, because I find the culture is very tight knit, and it's very like, if you don't have this kind of opinion, or if you don't have this type of mindset, then it's like, you can't be forced. If you are pro LGBTQIA, then it's like, okay, well, you're not like us. So this is why I was surprised that I was introduced by people like Ihan Omar or Rashida Tlaib that are voiced for being pro LGBTQIA. Now, is it for political gain? I'm sure it is, but I'm sure it is for political gain, because I personally feel like behind the scenes in their homes, they may not support it. I don't know. I'm just not used to seeing that, which is why I kind of just pushed away from the Arab community. And so with the Black culture, I see that as correlated, where it's like, well, if you want to be involved with people who are right wing or who are Republican and who have a history of discrimination or racism in housing, like Donald Trump's father did, or, having these rhetoric calling, some Mexicans are rapists, or saying the N-word, then, we can't fuck with you. You're not invited to the cookout. You see what I mean? So that's where I can see where my culture and where the Black culture can relate, because it's sort of like a, tight knit, this is who we are. If you're outside of that, fuck you, get out of here, get the fuck type of situation. And I understand that. I understand it, but at the same time, I think it's toxic mentality. I really do. I think it's toxic. It basically screams that we are not monolithic and we cannot have our own voice. Okay. And that, to me, that's what it screams, and so someone like a Pete Buttigieg, who is white, so maybe not a perfect example, or someone like Elizabeth Warren, who is white, but may not be the perfect example. Well, not Elizabeth Warren. She don't want to talk to Fox News, but someone like a Pete Buttigieg, right? Who goes on Fox and talks to Fox News. You see what I mean? It's like, we need to talk to both sides without all the time just scorching the whole race card and race stuff. And like, Tiffany Cross, girl, you on a white platform, okay? Talking about race. Come on now. Make that make sense. But anyways, let me know what you think in the comments below. Be sure to subscribe and click the bell so you'll be the first to know when I upload. Deuces. Yay!